$1,000 comic books sitting in dollar bins across the country.
This book quickly became the most iconic ASM cover in the last 5 years, and everybody forgot about it.
This is just perfect spec for me. The most trending comic books in the world. Number 10 on the list is Mark Spears' Monsters, issue number 2, the 1 in 25, Batman 423, Todd McFarlane homage. This book is hitting $40 average sales, high sales of $75 raw. This book came out a couple weeks ago and has tripled in value. So much attention on this IP that I'm starting to get a little worried.
I am as well. This is one of those things where a lot of buzz, a lot of heat. It's been on the list multiple times, and people very clearly do like and do want this book. But is it just supply and demand? Is it actually something long-term? I don't really think this is a whole lot of long-term traction. It's just that people were not ahead of the curve when ordering. So I'm going to give you a big tip. This week, right now, we have until this Sunday. Order on FOC. Mark Spears Monsters number 3. There are some incredible covers out there, including 2 of my favorite. One, cover B, we have Dracula and his wives, and cover C happens to have Ilsa, She-Wolf of the SS. So a couple great horror nods right there. Available at cover price if you pre-order. Book comes out January 29th of next year.
As someone who makes exclusives, I won't get into the details, but I happen to know of a artist who was attempting to make a Batman 423 homage to Absolute Batman, and DC put the kibosh to it. They wanted nothing to do with retailers bringing this book to press, doing the homage. Probably because when that does happen, they want to fulfill it. What I'm saying is, unlike, I don't know, Incredible Hulk 340 over at Marvel, which they'll let anyone do a variant on, and they'll also do a ton of variants of that homage themselves on multiple different comic runs. It's not happening with this particular cover. I think the supply is not meeting the demand on not just Mark Spears comics, but this homage specifically.
Congratulations to our giveaway winner, Travis L. You will have received a text message that you are the giveaway winner. Make sure you are signed up to the list to get your opportunity to win something every single week.
This week I have a gorgeous first appearance of The Last Ronin in preview, Virgin variant by Peach Momoko, graded at a 9.9 mint. ComicTom.com, link in the description. If you want to join all of our weekly giveaways, henceforth, you got to be part of our SMS group. It's free to join. You keep up on all of our drops and get exclusive discounts. It's the cheapest way to get our exclusives at a deal.
This book quickly became the most iconic ASM cover in the last 5 years, and everybody forgot about it.
I agree with you, Russ. At the list at number 9 is Patrick Gleason's Amazing Spider-Man 55 from 2020, going for $25 average high raw sales and $45 for a recent CGC 9.8. Those numbers don't make sense on the surface. We're seeing an increase of copies sold of 133% for good reason. We'll get to that in a second. I want to take you back to 2020. Patrick Gleason signed an exclusive Marvel deal in 2019. He actually pitched this cover a couple times, and Marvel declined it. They thought it was a little too out there, a little too sketchy, but he knew there was something special about it. And when they finally put it on a cover, I agree with you. It became one of the most iconic ASM covers, at least in the last 5 years.
This book was so high demand, they made 3 printings almost immediately. And at $25 raw for a first print, you would expect this to be $80 to $100 in a CGC 9.8. The fact that they're going for so cheap just means that people, forgot about it and needed a great reminder. Patrick Gleason, the artist himself, you should follow him on Instagram, sent out a Thanksgiving notification letting people know that he was so happy and thankful that this art had become so iconic, putting him on the map and cementing him forever in Spider-Man history.
Popularized as the webhead cover, he would take this to other titles, such as Carnage, Black, White, and Blood #1, ASM 75, Venom 33. And let's not forget about Avengers Curse of the Man-Thing #1 and Wolverine #1, which came out pretty recently.
Showcasing his gratitude through multiple different slides on his Instagram, it's amazing to see how many different artists this has touched, including people like tattoo artists and mixed medium artists. It is a beautiful, beautiful version of Spider-Man, and Patrick Gleason has done a fantastic job. You should really check out his store and his Instagram.
Back to the list at number 8 with Uncanny X-Men 120 from 1979. Chris Claremont, the first cameo appearance of the Canadian super team Alpha Flight. $215 average sales, $2,760 for a CGC 9.8. Back in September, hard to believe that at its height, this book was like an $8,000+ book. But we're seeing an increase of copies sold of 233% this week because the Alpha Flight rumors never stop.
Every single year, we are hearing more about an Alpha Flight rumor. And whether it's the Canadian cold front coming down or someone actually finding some casting or rumor, we have no idea because Alpha Flight, first rumored back in June of 2020, was supposed to be showing up in the MCU. Well, this week we have a 233% increase in copies sold on the cameo of Alpha Flight because of, well, Kevin Feige mentioned it in a video.
We have a lot of fellow Canadians at Marvel that discuss that very thing. And, you know, that dinner you talk about, that was in Toronto. The first X-Men film shot there in Toronto. I spent many months up there.
This is another Nova situation. We've been talking about Nova and Alpha Flight at least one time a year, every year, for the last 6 years. Will it happen? Who knows? But the eventuality seems almost guaranteed because of how coy they are in interviews, because they're very outspoken about this being a conversation that happens repeatedly. And then they get asked about it, and they mention it on camera, and then we talk about it. So take a look at the prices. You decide. This is just perfect spec for me.
And for those of you that are big Alpha Flight fans, you should also be on the lookout for Uncanny X-Men number 121, their first full appearance. And hey, both of these books are over on the Key Collector app on the Trending 20, the larger list that we source these 10 books from. You should download the best comic book app in existence. Use code TOM101 for 2 free weeks. I use it all the time. It will absolutely up your comic book collecting game.
Support the show, enhance your comic collecting, download Key Collector Comics, and let's look at number 7 on the list with Amazing Spider-Man number 15. We're talking Ditko, ASM, first appearance of Kraven, second appearance of the Chameleon, and the first mention of Mary Jane Watson. This comic book has been hopping from the trending to the hot 10 back and forth for weeks. The movie comes out this week, and that means 2 things. 1, it's trending. A lot of copies are selling. But also, if it's on the hot 10, it means that the average prices are increasing beyond the 12-month average, which means it's also getting hot. So many copies are selling because it's so low that those average prices are being beat out. Is this the time to buy or sell Kraven? I asked Jeff this. He thinks that it's still a good buy. What do you think?
This is a major blue chip key. This is a book that a lot of people are looking for, and I cannot tell you how many people I personally know that are working on an Amazing Spider-Man run. You got to start with the keys, and this is one of those books that every single person wants. But do you go for the best one? Do you go for what you can afford? Are you the type of person that says low grade is better than no grade? Well, what I like to do is look at where the tipping point is. This is actually really important when you're looking for a book. If it's affordable, especially if it's something that's like a major Silver Age key like this, you figure out how much you're willing to spend and what's the best book you can get at that price point. The tipping point here seems to be around a 3.5 or a 4.0 in CGC, because you can see everything that is a 4.0 and above is right about $800 to $1,000, and then it skyrockets from there. Anything 3.5 and below is in the $500 to $600 range. So a 3.5 is still a respectable book if you get something with good eye appeal that doesn't have a bunch of writing, doesn't have stuff on the cover. And that one, if you can get that in the $600 range or so, you can get some 3.5s that look just as good as 4.0s or 4.5s, but aren't going to cost you an arm and a leg.
Hit the subscribe button for that, comic fam. And are you going to watch Kraven? I'm actually really hyped about this. I'm hearing rumors that Kraven, since it's R-rated, and this kind of makes sense, maybe the first Sony film where we actually get an origin of a villain, like an actual foe of Spider-Man. He's going to go very violent, and maybe, and I hope, by the end of this movie, we have someone that we're going to be scared to see on the screen go up against our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
167% increase in copies sold this week, which is the week of the movie's release. And while People got to see 10 minutes of it at New York Comic Con. They also put the first 10 minutes of it online this last week. And you know what? If you go and watch that 10 minutes, you're probably going to go and see the movie. I liked it that much.
Number 6 on the list is Superman Man of Steel number 18 from 1992, one of the biggest keys of the 90s, seeing $18 average sales, $80 for a CGC 9.8, where it's been selling around $100 all year long. Superman and Lois, the show just ended. It wrapped up the Doomsday arc, which has been done over and over again. Absolute Superman is excellent. Stay tuned. We're going to be talking more about that here shortly. Doomsday is like doing some interesting stuff in the ongoing Superman run. And we also have a trailer for Superman coming out in the next couple weeks.
Doomsday as the time trapper in the mainstream Superman title. Plus, we have Absolute Superman. Plus, we have the impending trailer. This is a great time to be a Superman fan. I've never seen more buzz, and the industry agrees. 238% increase in copies sold this week. And if you want something deep cut, we have a super old video that we did about DCU variants, which were only available in multi-packs. And you know what? This is one of those books that had one of those old school DCU variants.
Dare I say, this next number on the list may be a sign that there may be $1,000 comic books sitting in dollar bins across the country. Number 5 on the list, Weird War Tales, issue number 93 from 1980. $250 average sales, $1,060 for a CGC 9.8 in August of this year. Everyone rejoiced when they saw the introduction of the new DCU, courtesy of James Gunn, with the debut of Creature Commandos, episodes 1 and 2, and they were outstanding.
A 200% increase in copies sold this week, and this is not your kids' animated series. Be careful, and you should probably vet it before you watch it, because it's funny, it's great, it's violent, it's sexy, it's dirty, it's dark, and these voice actors are amazing. When you have Alan Tudyk in there, when you've got Sean Gunn going to be G.I. Robot, like, these are some great people doing some amazing stuff. And really, back to the I do believe it's going to be out there in dollar bins, because this is from a comic book era that people just are forgetting. Because in the late 60s and early 70s, there were a bunch of war comics that people were buying. And by the later 70s, you figure that a lot of these things like Weird War Tales, GI Combat, Our Army at War were either petering out or doing things like pivoting from actual war stories to Creature Commandos, which is a little bit more supernatural, a little bit different. So when I get a collection in, and I'm sure lots of shop owners that do vintage comics do the exact same thing, you flip through the box, and when you see a long box of Our Army at War or GI Combat from like 77 to 82, you might check them for Mark Jeweller's variants, but for the most part, you just kind of move them to the side because there isn't a lot of keys. This book is absolutely going missed. This book is something that not a lot of people have thought about, and I think they're going to be out there if you hunt.
Have you hit the like button yet? Also, support what we do directly by going to comictom.com. We send out comics to our members every single month. 1 per box, Moon Knight, Fist of Khonshu, issue number 1, New York City Comic Con, John Jang exclusive. And then the second guarantee 1 per box, a straight up John Boy Meyer variant. I'm just going to hook you up with one of them. Look at them all. They're all glorious. Shout out John Boy for making this happen. John Boy and John Jang in every single box. That's 2 Johns, damn it.
Number 4 on the list, Thundercats number 1 from 1985. $70 average sales and $470 for CGC 9.8, which is drastically down from the record high of $2,250 back in April of 2021. Now, just a little collector thing, this book has a 65-cent cover price and a 75-cent Canadian cover price. But for those of you
it's in the pack, too.
I know, that's the best part of this. You can find them in a multi-pack, which has the first 3 issues. But keep in mind that the multi-packs have second and third printings in there. So if you see a number 1 with a 75-cent cover, it may not be Canadian. Always check this.
That's so weird. 2 different books on the list that you can get in multi-packs. I digress, because Dynamite is absolutely killing it with Thundercats. First off, it hit over 100,000 units sold, making it the number 1 comic release Dynamite has ever done. They got Rob Liefeld to do variants on it. They really pushed it, and clearly there is a fandom that loves Thundercats. Let's not forget, Deadline reported back in 2021 that the director from King Kong Godzilla is going to be doing a live action movie at some point. So that's just going to like happen. And then people are going to be jumping back to Thundercats beyond what they're already doing, because next year is the 40th anniversary. And there's actually a fundraiser. What is it called? It's like Kickstarter, but it's not.
Backer kit,
Which is essentially the same thing. They're doing a reprint of the Marvel Star Comics Thundercats run in an omnibus form. It went up 3 days ago. At the time of this filming, it's exceeded $70,000 in funding.
And if you're a fan of the old school Star Comics Thundercats, you should really go check it out. Yeah, you may have missed the early bird discount, but they have some other great tiers, and this is a great way to get all of your classic comic goodness in one place.
Well, the recent release of issue number 8, which introduced Apex, a new character in the run, has a lot of buzz, sure. But dude, Mark Spears is now officially like part of the Dynamite crew doing artwork. And of course, he has a variant of this character. And I have word that he's going to be doing a lot more.
Dynamite is doing a fantastic job with all of these other properties. And you may have checked out Lilo and Stitch, Scar, Maleficent, the Disney ones, or the classic Hanna-Barbera Space Ghost, but I'm really a huge fan of them doing more of these Star comics because Silverhawks is coming out in the very, very near future. That's going to be next year. Makes me wonder if we're going to have Sectars far behind. But you know what? The one that I am most excited about, and the one that honestly, if it had been April, I would have believed it was an April Fool's joke. Powerpuff Girls, yes, they're fantastic, but Powerpuff Girls with Thundercats, oh, now you have my attention.
Yeah, they're crossing over those two franchises. It's like Kid in a Candy Store as it pertains to a publisher.
Yep.
They're just going all out. You guys got to be following Dynamite Comics.
And you also have to pick up the new Absolute Superman. Number 3 on the list, Absolute Superman. Number 1, we are still seeing $5 average sales, but 114% increase in copies sold because number 2 came out this week. This Absolute universe that DC is starting to build has so much buzz. So many people are buying them. I actually have more people getting the Absolute comics than the mainstream DC comics.
I find it both fascinating, what you just said, but also completely unsurprising. For the first time ever this week, the book that I ran to read first on my pull list was Absolute Superman. I've never felt like that about the Man of Steel, and this right here is a special comic book. Jason Aaron is absolutely killing it, and you have to read issue number 2. It is a beautiful narrative that focuses in on Lois and Clark Kent like we've never seen before. But that's what this whole universe is. It's stuff that we haven't seen before. And I don't even want to get into it too much because clearly when people read issue number 2, they're going to look for more issues of issue number 1. They want to get more than one freaking copy. It's so damn good.
This is just one of those books that needs to be in the thumbnail because you know every single 90s kid has a copy and bought it brand new off the shelf. Number 2 on the list, Spawn number 5. First appearance, Billy Kincaid, a child predator. And we're seeing $4 average sales and $75 for CGC 9.8. If you read Spawn in the very beginning, it was dark. And you had the Violator and the Vindicator. You had these guys that had literal ties to hell. And people were getting killed and people were getting punished. Billy Kincaid eventually gets what he deserves for doing awful things to children. He's sentenced to 22 years in prison and only serves 6 of them. And then he ends up going to hell and some other things happen. Like really, it is a long, crazy story. An 800% increase in copies sold this week because one of his victims, Shirley Johnson, who shows up in this book as well, Spawn number 5, is actually going to be part of a Spawn spin-off series called No Home Here.
She is his last victim, and she is murdered in a brutal way. It's a reminder that when Todd McFarlane started his own comic book, he wanted to push the boundaries. I don't even think this could be redone right now. It's so dark, and I think people need to revisit Spawn like I'm going to be doing in 2025. I'm trying to piece together. I think I'm going to do a whole run. I think I'm just going to do it. I kind of want a full run of Spawn. I digress because this character hasn't been around in over 30 years. Like, she appears and dies in issue number 5. And we're getting a completely new spin on a character. And dude, she's back and it looks like she's gonna be getting some vengeance.
When I was 12 and Spawn was on the rack, that was the book that I had to buy. And every single kid that I know from the 90s was doing that same thing. So when I get collections into the shop, I get a lot of runs that are Spawn 1 through 25, give or take. You figure the guy's bought them for a couple years, Discover Girls went off to college, whatever. So there are going to be a lot of copies out there, which is why entry level on this is not a whole lot. But the longer we have a Spawn run, because it is still going to this day, the more keys that seem to crop up. Number 1 was big, Angela was big, and then we started caring about Cygor, and then we started caring about these other characters. So number 5 is now going to be on your hunt radar.
Yo, you can get this book for like $1, $5, get it graded for 18, 24, and then have what I think could be a $100 9.8 if this relaunch of this character lands at all with Spawn collectors.
And you know there's a newsstand.
Hit the like and subscribe. We're here every week covering the most trending comic books in the marketplace. And number 1, the number 1 most trending comic book in the world this week is Venom War, issue number 5. $5 average sales, the first appearance on the cover and in story of the anti-Carnage symbiote, courtesy of a future Dylan Brock shooting the existing Dylan Brock, wearing the symbiote with a magical bullet that transforms him into a gold cover anti-Carnage that will later have to separate and bond to somebody that we don't know in the current Al Ewing run, which has now officially started. All new Venom.
I've been a massive fan of Venom for years, and for the last 30 years, he's been one of those characters that you could just know that it's going to be a fun, good story, but it's gotten complicated. It's gotten too many things to read, and for new people jumping on, being able to say, all new Venom number 1, it's not Eddie Brock, because now we have Eddie Brock Carnage coming out in the very near future. We're seeing a 550% increase in copies sold this week, and I think there's a lot more good Venom to come.
Yeah, if you just watch the movie and then you get hit with Venom War, it's really tough to really get into it. It does get pretty complicated. However, there was a 1 in 25 Kyle Hotz variant. That is outstanding. Hit the like and subscribe button. Are you reading Venom? Are you excited to see Eddie Brock bond with the Carnage symbiote? Will it drive him mad? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. As always,
Eat responsibly.
enough said.